Everybody talks about visualization, but most people miss out on most of the value that is to be gained. Because if you are visualizing in such a way that is obvious to you, obvious method of visualization, then you likely are missing out on the abundance of benefits that can come with effective visualization. So what I'm saying here is most people visualize in such a way that is obvious to them. They take the idea of visualization on face value and they think, okay, I'm going to visualize success in this exam, say, and so they picture themselves writing the exam and knowing everything. And then you wonder why it doesn't work for you, and you wonder why you still don't get good marks, or you wonder why you picture yourself with a Lamborghini, but you wonder why you don't have your Lamborghini. It doesn't make sense to you, and then you start to think visualization is nonsense. But the reality is that people who visualize like this are visualizing wrong. This is the wrong approach to it. And visualizing, if done properly, is a powerful technique that can actually propel you towards success. Okay, but then it's not going to be something easy, although it can be pleasurable, it can be a pleasant experience. And in fact, the more you do it, the more pleasant it becomes, because you start to see yourself moving towards your goals, and these visualizations become realizations of your goal. And that is motivating, and that is something that's not just worthwhile seeing, but that's something that brings a lot of joy and satisfaction and fulfillment to your life. So we need to work on this process of visualization so we can actually reap the benefits that we are desiring. Okay, so when you think about your goals, try and visualize them in detail. Okay, now that's the standard advice, but what does it actually mean to visualize your goals in detail? Okay, so visualization on face value is just you think about yourself in the exam, and then you might have heard someone else say visualize them in detail. So now you're thinking about how your pen's writing the correct answer, and this still seems very weird and quirky to you and not really rooted in reality. So what do we mean when we say you should visualize in detail? Well, suppose you wanted something, and suppose that this desire was compelling, really compelling. This is something that you really, really wanted. And let's say it was also worthwhile. Okay, so that's going to be the fundamental base that I'm going to build this visualization on. So your goal is something that's worthwhile and it's compelling. This is something that you really want and something that's worth having. Okay, so it's not, let's say a Lamborghini is maybe not, maybe it's very compelling but not so worthwhile. Something like feeding people at a soup kitchen is definitely worthwhile, but it's not necessarily compelling. But something where we can get maybe a mix of it, and you're in a leadership position helping a lot of people, and because you're helping a lot of people in these grand ways, you can be remunerated for that. And so now there's a compelling thing that's also worthwhile. So that's what we're going for. Compelling, worthwhile goals. That's what sets us up for goals that we can care about on deeper levels. So instead of only focusing on the want or output side of your goal in detail, instead of just thinking about the want or output, like thinking about the Lamborghini, or thinking about being in a position of leadership where you have a lot of influence, we need to start shifting our depth of thinking towards the inputs and gain clarity on what it takes not to be there, but to get there. Okay, that's what we're trying to shift towards, and that's where the major benefits will come. So I'm going to explain to you exactly how this can be done effectively, and how I do this, and how it's brought a lot of success to my life, and I'm sure how a lot of other people do it. Now, it's not like I've come across some brilliant realization. It's just I've been looking and thinking about this a lot, and when I look at all the people who are successful, and you think about it and you break it down deeper, and you just think about this logically, you'll come to the same conclusions I did. So I'm going to share them with you in advance so that you don't have to go through the process of trying to figure everything out. Okay, so caring about your goals is the best predictor of success. Okay, that was my previous video. I said IQ and work ethic or discipline are not the best predictors of success. It's actually how much you care about this thing. Okay, now caring, so if you want more context on that, you can just go watch that video. So caring manifests as thought. Okay, so caring about this goal is most likely to get you to achieve that goal. But what caring looks like is you thinking about that goal a lot. And you can think about that goal in two ways primarily. You can think about what precedes the achievement of the goal, and you can think about what succeeds the achievement of the goal. So in this period leading up to the goal, this is you changing your lifestyle, changing yourself to align with this new vision, with this new goal of yours, with this new lifestyle that promotes that. Okay, aligning your thoughts, your actions, everything, and now channeling yourself towards that goal. This is the build up and how you can meander and iterate and move through challenges towards this goal and constantly readjust. Okay, this is the one side of the thinking, what precedes the goal. And then there's what succeeds the goal. And this is once you've achieved it, the feeling of accomplishment, the feeling of success, what it looks like to have achieved it, what a person who has achieved this thing, how they behave, how they act. And this is the fun thing to do. It's fun to dream about the build-up. Not the build-up, it's fun to dream about the aftermath of success. Okay, it's not as fun to dream about the build-up of success. But this is where a lot of the benefits are hidden. When people think about visualization, they either think of the build-up in a superficial way, or they think of the aftermath. And then they never really link the future, the desired future, to the present. And so it stays as a distant future. It stays as a desired reality instead of a realized reality. So we want to move this desire into reality. And so we have to connect the future to the present through this process of thinking about the inputs. Okay, and thinking about these inputs in detail is what's going to get us there. And I'm going to get into that and really uncover how we should do this. Okay, so caring about success is essentially the same thing as thinking about the build-up and the aftermath of success, and thinking about that continually. Okay, so it's not enough to think about it once or twice. This must be something that dominates your thoughts, your subconscious, your conscious mind, something that's always in the front of your mind, that whenever you start to daydream or you're bored, this is where your mind wanders to. That's what it means to care about something a lot, okay? To think about it continually and to think about the aftermath and the build-up, okay? Now we want to focus on the build-up for the best results. Okay, so there are two ways to think about the build-up to success. There is an unstructured way of thinking and a structured way of thinking. Now, when I said to you, you should think about the build-up to success more, you most likely had a structured viewpoint about this. You thought, in order to achieve my goal, there's a series of steps that need to be followed and executed successfully and checkpoints along the way. And once I've achieved all of those, I will get my goal. So I'm visualizing myself. If my goal is to do well in an exam, I'm visualizing myself mapping out the content. Then I'm visualizing myself understanding it all and encoding the information, then practicing some questions, and then I'm visualizing myself in the exam, putting this to good use, and then I'm visualizing myself marking my practice questions, etc., etc. And this is how we think about it. This is the structured way. But this is not the fun way. The fun way is the unstructured way. The structured way is necessary, but it should come second to the unstructured way about thinking about inputs. Okay, so the process doesn't have to be stressful, anxiety-inducing, or difficult, as the structured way often comes across as. You think, okay, I need to achieve this goal, and then it just hits you, the massive distance that stands between you now, present you, and future you that's achieved the goal, and then it's so stressful to try and map everything out and think about each step, and it can be overwhelming. Okay, so it doesn't have to be stressful to think about the build up to success. We can actually think about it in a way that's fun and enjoyable. So start with the unstructured way of thinking. And this unstructured way of thinking is to just let your imagination and your creative mind go and play. Let them play. Let yourself think about the ways that you can become successful in your desired realm. So if your desired realm is academics, then you can start to think about how you could go and study at this location, and how this location might benefit your focus and productivity. And then you can start thinking about, okay, I'm going to think about maybe what the key input for this output is the number of hours that I need to study. And so you start to think in your head with a calculator, I might need this many hours to study. And so you work backwards. And if I need this many hours and I have this many days, I need this many hours a day. And how can I do that? And what does that look like? And this can be fun. This can be a fun way to do it. You let your mind wander and feel out the terrain of your goal, and feel out the situation, and try and understand it on an emotional level as well, and try and become familiar with this goal. Okay, this is the fun way to do it. And it's not just for academics. You can think about how you can be rich. I often sit here, not here exactly, but I often sit around with a calculator, and I just sit there typing in numbers, and probably someone thinks I'm weird, like typing in random things, but I'm sitting there and I'm typing things, making projections. And this is a really useful trick to do as well. You might sit there and you think, okay, I have this business idea, and maybe my business idea is about flipping houses. And if I flip houses, what I'm essentially doing is the value that I'm adding to the market is I'm becoming a marketplace. Okay, I'm connecting buyers and sellers. Okay, so the value that I create is that, and I get remunerated through this capital gain by selling the house for more than what I bought it for. Okay, and that premium is what I'm getting for connecting the buyer and the seller. And so if I want to make as much as possible, I understand what value I'm bringing. Now I need to understand, how can I maximize this? So I start thinking, maybe I need to renovate properties, and maybe the renovation costs provides an added boost, or maybe it doesn't, and I quickly run some numbers and try and figure that out. How much does it cost to refurnish, to renovate a property? And then I think about what areas and how many properties I could do in a week or in a month. And then I start thinking about how many people I might need to employ, and your mind runs and you let it run, and you come up with so many great ideas. And this is the unstructured way, the fun way to think about the build up to your goals. Then you think, okay, if I'm doing this, I could maybe expect a profit of this much per month. And wow, look at the lifestyle I could get with that income. And now all of a sudden, you've connected your present to your desired reality through this process. And that starts to begin the process of a realization of success. And that's what's important. So it's not enough to just visualize what it is to be wealthy, to be successful. It's not enough to just think about productivity systems, how to be productive. The part that we all miss is this unstructured lead up thinking, visualization, where we think about the processes and we mind map and plan. This is what everyone skips. It's also what makes great essays. People who plan their essays and their thoughts tend to deliver coherent thoughts. And that's what makes a lot of essays successful. So this is or they might write a rough draft first instead of going straight for the final. And this rough draft is the flow of consciousness. And this flow of consciousness and this creative, unstructured thinking is what uncovers a lot of the value. You let yourself meander and sniff around and feel out the terrain. That's where a lot of the benefits are to be had. And essentially what this is it's creative daydreaming. And while that may diminutize, it may make it seem less important, it's a daydreaming. It's like, well, who the hell thinks daydreaming is beneficial? But it actually has a lot of benefits. And I'm sure you can see why, because it clearly connects the desired future with the current reality, the current point in time, how you are sitting in the present moment. And so that's extremely useful. And now once we've done that, once we've done this process and we've generated a lot of ideas, now if you were thinking about business and you thought about this house flipping thing, maybe you had another business idea and this was about selling courses, and then you quickly went through that, and now you have so many ideas and you're just bursting with energy and motivation, and you really want to get going, and you've overcome a lot of the initial friction because there's so many places to start. There's an abundance of opportunity, and you've just realized this now. You've uncovered it for yourself. You've painted the picture of the future. You've dreamt, and you've dreamt successfully, because now you're going to go take action, or now you're going to go and think about this in a structured way. Now, the structured way is not so anxiety-inducing. It's not so stressful. It's not so overwhelming. It's not so worrisome. It's not so difficult. Now, the structured way of thinking can take on a much more productive and beneficial form. We can start to think about, okay, now let's take all these ideas and let's bring them into a cohesive format. Let's try and actually make a plan here. Let's try to think about the systems in detail, what I need to achieve. And when I think about structured visualization, the first thing that comes to mind is how Michael Phelps used to visualize his races. And don't quote me on all of this, but it was something along the lines of him visualizing his build up to the race, what his nighttime routine was like, what his morning routine was like, what he would eat, how he would, like the exact minutes of the day. He would go in the pool, he would do this many strokes, and then from that he would exit the pool, he would do some land warm up, and then he would get changed into this thing, go into the locker room, come out, and then from the block he would do his little ritual back by the block, and then he dives in and he pictures stroke after stroke, and he mapped this whole thing out in advance. Okay, and this is a very structured way of thinking, and that's beneficial. And that's what I think of typically when I think about this structured, cohesive build up to success way of thinking. The aftermath would have been him winning the gold medals at the Olympics, but the build up is all of this, and that's a structured way of thinking about it. Now, the unstructured way would have been him thinking about different training regimes and just playing with diets and how we could think about what other exercise regimens he could bring in to supplement his training, and he could think about where to train if he wants to do altitude training, think about his stroke, and a whole lot of ideas swirling around in his head. That's the unstructured way. Then the structured way is this decisive step-by-step process towards success. Okay, now that's the way that I'm talking about structured thinking. But of course you might say to me, George, if I want to be an entrepreneur, then there's no one event that's going to define my success. I'm not going to dive in a pool, swim to the other end faster than everyone else, and that's my success. I'm going to have to build revenue, and my value and my delivery of success is not a successful swim, but it's a successful product delivery for months on end. And then I can develop income, okay, a substantial income. And that's what you think about. And say, yes, fine, you're right. Now, that type of structured thinking is very similar to the way Michael Phelps does it, but it's slightly different. So the way that it's different is now you start thinking about the systems in detail. You start thinking about your routine. You start thinking about how many people you need to hire, and not just in an unstructured way, just throwing ideas around, doing quick calculations. You actually start making sophisticated projections, and you start having sophisticated thoughts. And then you can start thinking about this in a great more deal of detail. So you start thinking, okay, the life that I need to live in order to be a successful entrepreneur who has this type of income is this type of life. And this type of life, the type of stuff that I do when I'm actually working is this type of work. And I need to visualize myself being someone of stature, someone who can hold his own in a meeting with successful people, business proposals. I'm someone who can attract talent. I'm someone who can market effectively. And you start to think about these things in more detail. And obviously, the way I'm saying it now is not sufficient detail. You'd have to think about your marketing approach in much more detail than that. And you'd have to think about all the different ways of marketing. And then you'd have to think about exactly how you're going to do that and make projections, make plans, and then you go ahead and do it. So that's what I'm talking about with the structured way of thinking. So anyways, there are other ways of doing this, and it's all really dependent on what works for you. But the point I'm getting at here is don't miss out on the major benefits of visualization and planning. We think of this in a very narrow sense. We think of visualization as either just the attainment of the goal and what it looks like to be successful, or we think of it as like my pen needs to hit the paper and then I get that right and I get a little rush, a feeling of success, and move on to the next question, conquer that one, and then I move on and I've conquered the whole exam. And that's what we tend to think about visualization, either that or then afterwards this feeling of success, I'm the top student or I'm a successful entrepreneur. And that's not actually all there is to visualization. I'm trying to open this up to you. I'm trying to show you that visualization is also about unstructured thinking. It's also about dreaming. But then the structured thinking can build on the dreaming, okay? And the dreaming can take the form of both the build up to success and the aftermath of success. And this strengthens your ability to care for your goal. And that's the importance of visualization. It helps you care more, and through caring more, it helps you to take action more. And through caring more, you thinking more, and you are visualizing more. These are one and the same thing, essentially. That's what I'm trying to get at you. So try and introduce more unstructured thinking into your life. Let your mind wonder about success, not just about the aftermath of success, but also about the build up to success, and see how that works wonders in your life.